I'm Marianne Sprague-Dennison, the founder of Active Discovery. Our mission at Active Discovery is to foster activity, encourage learning, launch discovery, all despite tough circumstances. One way we do this is through our Hometown Hero video series. These are real stories of real people who have overcome many obstacles to live lives of great impact. Active Discovery traveled to Mexico to meet Ezequiel and hear his story. The beginning of his story is rough. A tough life filled with sadness that led him to prison. But then you will hear how a nudge from a friend allowed him to discover a passion that led to a life of freedom, great impact, and joy.
When it's something positive that you bring to a child's life and say, here, try this, and they try because they've never done it, it's like those moments where like, oh, and if it intrigues them, they're gonna wanna keep doing it. My name is Ezequiel Gonzalez, and I am 29 years old. I was born in Puebla, Mexico. My biggest obstacles in overcoming obstacles that I think has been the whole theme of my life. Life has been an obstacle. Just not wanting to exist was an obstacle. My childhood, it was filled with a lot of sadness. Yeah, there was moments of happiness. Can't deny those. But there was a lot of moments of sadness. Evolving around domestic violence, my mom was very abusive. My father was very abusive. There was a lot of screaming at home. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of tension. There was always somebody angry at the house for some reason or another. So there was a lot of fear too involved in my childhood. My mom took us to the United States. I was about 6, 7 years old. It was late night, about 1 in the morning. My mom came and woke me up and she said, it's time to go. House was already bare, everything was put away in boxes, and we got in the taxi. Taxi took us to a bus station, and the bus station took us to the airport, and from the airport, hopped on the plane, landed in TJ, and about 2 days later, we crossed illegally to the United States, walking, and we went chasing that American dream. Well, I grew up in downtown LA. I went to an elementary school called Betty Placencia, and the language barrier was difficult for me to speak English, and I couldn't speak English. I don't know what the hell the other kids were talking about. So I grew up being bullied in elementary school because I didn't know how to speak English. And a lot of times they would get me to say yes to things, and I was trying to fit in. And half the times they were just saying bad stuff about me, and the kids would laugh and they would look at me like I was stupid. And I felt very stupid. And the gang members in particular, every time I see them in the street corners, they look like this untouchable gods to me. It's like, and every time my uncles and my families would refer to them with a lot of fear. They'll be like, stay away from those people. Those are very, very dangerous people. And just feeling like I was being attacked at school, I started looking at these guys like, I want to be like them. I want to be like them to where nobody's going to look at me. No one's going to want to do anything to me. They're going to be scared of me. That's what I wanted to be as a kid. So, and that was the biggest part of it, was that I wanted those kids at school not to mess with me. And I started looking up to gangs at that age. It was in the 3rd grade. And it came to the point where when I was in the 4th grade, my brother one day, I got home, I got jumped by some kids, and he told me never to allow a kid to do that. So what had happened that day is that a group of kids came up to me and they just started calling me all kinds of derogatory names. And interesting enough, they were Hispanic kids. And one of them, I still remember, he was the tallest one of the crew. He was a heavy-set dude. He just came up to me and pushed me to the floor. And all the other kids just came around and started kicking me and spitting on me. And I got up and went to the restroom, washed myself up, and I started crying in the restroom. I was crying out of anger. I was crying because I didn't know what to do. I couldn't do anything. I felt powerless. And when I got back to class, the teacher saw me all beat up. And he asked me what happened, but I had this knot so heavy on my throat that I felt if I spoke in front of the class, I would start crying, and that was not gonna help. I can't cry in front of all these kids. There's a kid to beat me up. I felt like I couldn't cry. I felt like I couldn't speak, so I stayed quiet. And the teacher took my silence as not wanting to say anything. and he sent me to the principal's office where they asked me more questions, started interrogating me, and again I couldn't talk. I just couldn't say anything. And the principal classified me as a troublemaker and called my mom and told her, look, your kid got in a fight. He saw we were getting in trouble and he doesn't want to say who he got in a fight with, so he needs to go. So they called my mom to come pick me up, and wow, that was not a good day because I got beat up in school, and then when we got home, my mom slapped me a few times until I fell on the ground. She went into the kitchen and got her favorite tool, which was a metal spatula, and started beating me with it until it broke. And she was so mad that they called her out of work. And when I tried to tell her what had happened, because finally I found my voice and I wanted to tell her, but she just told me to shut up and not talk back to her. So a lot of Mexican culture, when an adult is talking to you and you say anything, you're talking back. You can't say nothing. So from then I became silent. I became a silent person. While my mom beat me, I still remember just crying, but I wasn't letting out those cries anymore, just tears flowing down my eyes. And when she finally left, I just stayed there on the floor, on the carpet, just lay there. I just felt like my life is meaningless. And my brother got home and he found me there on the floor and he saw me all beat up. My brother at that time, he's already a gang member. And he said, what happened? And I told him what happened, and his face was just mad. He was very angry. And he said, don't ever let nobody do that to you. He said, you're not a punk. He said, my little brother's not a punk. He said, next time somebody comes up to you and calls you out of your name, you punch him right in the mouth. So you don't think about it, you just punch him. You don't ask questions, you don't even talk. Just punch him in the mouth. And I was still like quiet and scared, and I was like, okay, how am I gonna do that, dude? And he just heard the story, they jumped me. And I still remember when I tried to tell him that there's nothing I could have done, he pushed me to the ground. And I remember like, what the hell, man? And I tried to get up and he just kept pushing me. And he just kept pushing me. And he said, come on, man, do something. And then finally, like just out of this rage, I tackled him to the floor and I started punching him. And he laughed and he hugged me. And he said, that's my little brother. That's it. He said, that's what you gotta do. Don't let no one punk you. He gave me a hug and he said, I'm proud of you. That felt good. That was acceptance. So I came to interpret as violence the way to keep people away from me. And it happened the next day. I went back to school, saw the group of kids again. They were walking my way, laughing, pointing at me. And I just saw that big old guy and I said, that's my obstacle there. And I remember walking up to him and just punching him right in the mouth, just the way my brother taught me. Kid fell to the ground and I got on top of him and just started punching him so bad in his face. And it was like everything turned red. My vision turned red. And I just felt someone grab me and lift me up into the air. It was a teacher. So a teacher got there, picked me up, and he grabbed me. And all the kids were gone by the time I realized and came back into reality. And I saw the kid on the floor. And I just remember screaming at him and spit on him. And they took me and I felt very proud of myself. And when I got to the principal's office and she asked me what happened, I tell her, what do you care? I'm gonna be a gangster. And I got out of the office, took off running, jumped the fence, got out of school, and I ran to the neighborhood. And I found all the older homies there, all the guys that knew my brother, they all saw me. They're like, hey, what happened, man? And I told them that I just escaped from school. So they walked me home, they took me home, and they made me go inside. But I felt that they protected me. I felt like I was being protected by them, you know. So when I was 12, I got jumped into an actual gang in LA. A lot of different gangs have different things that they have you do. Because it's a Southerner gang, I had to be jumped in for 13 seconds and I had to be beaten up by 13 members of the gang. I was 12 years old at that time and it was 13 grown men that got on me for 13 seconds and it just turns into a bloody mess. I wrote this one in July 19, 2018, 4 years ago. My favorite decade. So far, I've only lived 2. Now, halfway there to my 3rd one. Yet, yesterday marked a decade. A decade.
It has been a decade since the day I was arrested. Is it my favorite? It is hard to determine, but let's stop and examine. A decade ago, I was a gangster. I did not care of no one else. I was absorbed in a chaotic world, creating victims with no remorse. Some say I was an animal. Others confirm I was a troubled child. At only 15 years of age, I was engulfed in clouds of smoke. Drugs ruled my world. My choices were stupid. Then came the day I was arrested. An honorable service to society by LAPD.
When I was in prison, I actually had those thoughts, right? Like how would have I been better helped? So during that time when I was struggling, definitely could have used an ear, someone to listen, someone to pay attention to what was going on in my life, someone that could ask questions, could hear me out without judging me. Having a father around would have helped. He wasn't around. I know that would have helped a lot. Having a supportive mother, that her solution was not to beat me up, but to probably find out what's going on. And somebody at that point that could have just taught me to do something different. So my mom worked all day. She left to work like at 6:30 in the morning, got back home at 7 at night. She was a single mother with 4 children, and she just didn't have time. And I think that was the biggest challenge in my childhood, that my mom did not have the time. I believe meeting someone that would have taught me art and that would have believed in me definitely would have changed the path I took. I didn't have any type of after school program or any other programs. Yeah, I definitely believe having a program, especially arts, would have definitely changed the course of my life. And I believe active discovery would have definitely helped me because of what active discovery promotes.
Active discovery exists because we think we can help prevent circumstances like Ezekiel's. I want you to note, it was a small nudge from a friend that started Ezekiel down a path that changed his life. Active discovery creates new experiences and an opportunity for children to discover a passion in life. We provide access to opportunities children may not otherwise have through our signature product, our Active Discovery Kits. This year alone, thousands of children have experienced art, music, cooking, and sports through these kits, enabling them to find a talent within themselves that could change their life.
I discovered my talents when I was in the California Institution for Men at CIM in prison. I met Stan Hunter, who is my art teacher. He was my next door neighbor at that time. I was 19 years old and we were on lockdown. I had just gotten to that yard and they were doing 5-minute showers. So what they would do, they would open 2 cells at a time. 2 cells will go in and shower, then the 2 cells, so they went like that. He was my next door neighbor. So they opened his cell and my cell. So we went, took a shower. We went back outside. We passed by his cell and I looked at this big old painting of a Bengal tiger. And I was like, oh my God, that's a beautiful picture. And I went back and I said, hey, where'd you buy that picture from? He looked at me like he was insulting. He said, that's a painting. And I said, no way. He said, yeah. He says, you want to see it? So he invited me into his cell and I went and I touched the canvas and I said, wow. So this Bengal tiger was in between a lot of foliage and there was like a lot of foliage around him and there was this lights coming through. But on the paws, you could just see every little hair, the shadows, the contrast, everything was there, all the elements. And I was like, wow, it looked like a picture, it looked like an actual picture. And I told him, how much you want to sell it to me for? I told him, I want to buy that off of you. And he said, no, man. He said, you could do it. Why would you want to buy it for? And I was like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. I don't even know how to draw stick figures. And he says, yeah, I'm sure you could draw stick figures. And I tell him, dude, I can't paint. In the back of my head, I'm thinking of my 4th grade teacher that told me I would never be an artist. My 4th grade class was an art class. And most of the things we did during class were art. So we were recycling paper at that time. And I think I didn't put enough water. Something happened where I burned it down. And he got so pissed at me and he told me I would never be an artist. He said, that's why you're never gonna be an artist. And he kicked me out of the class. So that experience with my 4th grade teacher definitely put that, it was like a wall between me and art. So every time I would see art, it was like this impossible thing. Like, yeah, I can't do that. So that's why when Stan told me I could paint, I was like, you're crazy, dude. And our teacher told me I can't. And our teacher told me I would never be an artist. And I said, dude, I can't paint. And he says, I could teach you. He told me, do a drawing and I'll let you know if you could paint or not. Just do a drawing today and bring it to me tomorrow. I was excited. I was excited to hear someone tell me that I could paint something like that. Knowing that I couldn't, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I was like, nah, I'm cool, man. So I went back to my cell, but it was the seed was planted. And I went ahead and I pulled out a paper. We were locked down. I had all day in the cell. And I drew this little heart with wings and I put effort into it. I put little shadows. I fuzzied out the shadows on the pencil. And, I thought it looked nice. And I went and I showed it to him and he's like, wow. He says, you're gonna be a good artist, man. And I said, this guy's messing with me, man. This guy's really messing with me. He took my drawing back and I said, come on, man. And now I'm looking at the painting again. I'm like, let me put this thing away real quick. And he says, you wanna start painting tomorrow? And I said, sure. So here we go into the day room and the first thing we did were yellow roses. And that's the reason I teach yellow roses. I was so intrigued by moving the colors. I was so intrigued by making a canvas look like the picture. And I stuck with him for about 3 months until I finished that painting. And he said, Sid, you know everything you need to know. I said, you gotta be, I still can't paint. And he said, we're gonna go open up that gym. We're gonna go do murals. He said, and we're gonna start an art program. I said, you gotta be kidding me. He said, and you're gonna help me teach people. And I said, you're insane. And he said, I'm serious. Sure enough, a month later after we opened the gym, he brought a guy and he said, teach him everything I taught you. He said, that's gonna be the only way you're gonna grow. And sure enough, by teaching other people, I grew as an artist. In explaining the instructions that he explained to me, for some reason, it just keeps on growing, the ability to be able to do something like that. So Prison Art Collectives came into, at that time, it was not Prison Art Collectives. It was Community-Based Art Program. It was CBA, Community-Based Art. And Annie Buckley brought it into the prison at that time.
So I'm Annie Buckley, and I'm a professor here at San Diego State and the director of the Institute for Arts, Humanities, and Social Justice. And I am the founding director of Prison Arts Collective. Part of my goal as an artist and as an educator has always been to open up access to the arts to people who don't typically have access to it. We started the classes at the places that there was a need, and so that was like a Boys and Girls Club at a public housing project and a low-income senior center. And then at the same time, there was this call from the prison in Chino, and because it kind of was growing, we would refer to it as community-based art, which is the name that probably Ezequiel mentioned. And we try to be responsive to the needs of our participants as well as our students and kind of create something out of all of those interests. But we do have like a clear path of 2 different types of programs, multidisciplinary art and facilitator training, and they have different goals and outcomes. And then we also do implement a particular structure.
It was a very transformative moment for me in prison because I learned how to teach with a structure. So when I taught with Stan, there was no structure. It was like, whatever. But with Prison Art Collectives, brought a structure into the prison, which is a university structure. So Annie Buckley brought all these different kind of programs, and we had trainings. We would meet up, all the staff, and they consider us a staff because we were teaching with them. That actually made me feel good because I felt included. I felt like I was part of society now. At CIM, where I was at, they came every Friday, and they provided art classes from 9 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. We had a lot of different classes. I taught painting as well as flower making classes. I make these little paper flowers, by the way. So I taught a class in that. And I took a lot of classes with them as well. I learned a lot about art history through Prison Art Collectives. So there's all kinds of different styles of art. I practiced something called photorealism, and I learned it through Prison Art Collectives in one of the art history classes. Photorealism in particular only exists through photography. So we didn't have photographers, my style of art wouldn't exist. So what we do is we take a photograph and we try to get all the colors, all the hues, all the values that are in the photograph and mix them with colors. And we either use acrylic watercolor, you could use any medium. It depends on the artist. Like photorealism a lot more because it's the first thing I learned. And once I learned it, I fell in love with it.
I'm so proud of Ezequiel and everything he's done. It's so amazing and so beautiful. You know, he's an amazing student. I definitely got to know him well over the years because we worked with him for, I'd say probably about maybe 6 years before he got out. He took to the painting, he took to the classes, he became a beautiful painter, and over time he took pretty much every class we had.
I got involved in theater when I was 19 years old. I was at CIM in Chino, and they did the Actors Gang Prison Project. And I fell in love with theater because I felt like a child again. I felt free in a sense. And it was different from art because painting was one thing. Painting is, for me, it's kind of like it's a moment for me to look at myself. It's a personal moment. But theater was different for me. Theater was an interactive thing. It was a social thing with my partners in there. So when I was finally being able to get on stage and I was able to be sad for the first time and actually allow tears to roll down my eyes in front of an audience, it was so liberating. So every time I would go into the theater classes, I felt like I had this knot. And when I got out of the theater, it was like the knot was gone. That's theater for me. If I had theater when I was around 9 years old, 8 years old, I believe that would have changed the course of my life too, just because of that moment to express myself. So I definitely want to share theater with a lot of other people. And I started Comedia del Arte Tecate here in Tecate. And it's a small program right now. It's a new group. And just being able to see them get on stage and doing all this ridiculous stuff that I did and just hearing what they say at the end. And that's exactly what they said the other day. They said it's so liberating. When I come here, I leave leaving light. And I got a smile on my face and I said, yeah, we're doing the work. I feel good when I help other people because it's exactly what he asked me to do. I feel like I'm honoring what Stan taught me, because what he told me was, all I ask in return is that you teach someone else. So that's it. That's all I ask. Now I pass that down by giving free art classes. So every Wednesday from 11 to 1 p.m. I give art classes at El Estudio del Creador, and they're free art classes to the community. It's a nonprofit organization that has been going on for a while now, and I volunteer there.
When Ezequiel first learned he was going to be released, you know, we did hear from him, and we were so excited to learn this, of course. And you know, he's now in Mexico and has been able to make this beautiful life for himself. So I think that's really the heart of what art is. You know, that's what it is. It's not just creating things, it's creating a life, it's creating meaning, and being able to take whatever it is in your surroundings and turn that into something that is only in the imagination, right? And then to bring that into life. Seeing him do that is so meaningful and so special, and it makes me feel like, okay, he is, like about halfway through him taking our classes, he's like, you know what? I'm an artist. And I'm like, yes, you know, yes you are. So to see, you know, what he's doing, of course, with the arts and teaching art, and I saw like the podcast he did with some colleagues and friends with his community art program, and I know he's starting a work with the Actors Gang program there, and just to see him really build that. I knew he had it in him because, like I was saying, he's such a born leader, but it's so exciting and meaningful and inspiring to see.
So for me, building my home is it's a very important part of my life. It all started when I got here to this house. So this house was built by Ricardo, you know, and his brothers. So when he started telling me about how he bought land here, he started mentoring me about this, and he started telling me about it. I started looking for lots for sale, and he told me that it's best to build my own house. And I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. And I had I don't know nothing about construction. I don't know nothing about anything to do with construction. I don't even know how to hold a shovel right at that time. It was almost 2 years ago. And I was like, I was very excited, and I said, I could see myself building my house. I started looking around for lots, and it took me a while. It was all the way to last year, May of last year, Mother's Day. I called the number that Yara gave me, and a guy picked up, and I told him, hey, I'm looking for a property. I'm trying to buy a piece of land. So he said, hey, let's meet up. I'll show you some pieces of land right now and see which one you want to buy. And I was like, all right, let's go. So I went, I met him up, and he took me to these ranches. And over the last year, I spent a lot of time going in there with the machine. So contract the machine to level it out. I dug in 2 big old holes in the property now that are good enough to start building a house. So right now I'm preparing to start my own food business. We're renting a spot, just a piece of land. And I decided to invest and build something since I wanted to practice building again. And I'm gonna go down with all my paintings and I'm gonna put them down there, and we're gonna start selling food, and we're gonna see who shows up to buy food and who shows up to look at the art. And that's the project right now. That's my personal big project because I feel like I need more income to be able to build. I think my driving force to do stuff without fearing of failure is that I wasn't supposed to get out to 2031. So anything that I do since the moment I got out in 2019 to 2031, it's all gain for me. So I have this opportunity to explore things, to try things, to fail at things, and to learn from things because I have nothing to lose. I didn't have nothing. I don't have nothing. That's the way I look at the world. When I was in my cell, I didn't have nothing. I just had a few books, my television, 13-inch TV, and whatever other little things we bought. I didn't have anything. Those things are gone. I don't have them no more. So now it's like I'm doing these things, and if I fail, I'm gonna learn what to do next. I don't have all the answers right now, but I do know that I'm gonna go do it and just have nothing to lose.
Discovering his passion in art was only the beginning. It created a pathway for an active life and an active mind, creating a future that became much more than the culmination of his past. Teaching, theater, building his own home, running a business, they all came from that initial nudge, even his early release from prison. If you're interested in supporting our nonprofit work, visit our website, www.activediscovery.org. We'd like to leave you with Ezequiel's heartfelt message about creating your own path in life. Thank you.
Si te sientes solo, si sientes que nadie te escucha, que nadie te quiere, o que eres tonto, torpe, que no sabes nada, pues te quiero decir que no pienses así, porque al fin de cuentas eres una persona, eres un ser humano, uno de los seres más inteligentes del mundo. Pues yo te sugiero que si no sabes hablar inglés, no sabes comunicarte en la escuela, te están haciendo bullying, te están llamando fuera de tu nombre, te quiero decir que lo ignores. Y yo sé que es difícil decir eso, ¿no? Ignorar las cosas. Pero a veces ignorar las cosas negativas te ayudan a enfocarte en lo positivo. Si te enfocas tanto en lo que te están haciendo en la vida que está mal, pues te vas a estresar, vas a vivir mal. Pero si haces eso a un lado y te enfocas en lo bueno, por ejemplo, tus pensamientos, ¿qué quieres hacer? ¿Qué te gustaría hacer en la vida? ¿Te gusta hacer? ¿Te gusta dibujar? ¿Te gusta pintar? ¿Te gusta bailar? A lo mejor te guste jugar con los animalitos. Eso es el enfoque importante, porque en la vida tenemos dos opciones. Una, o le hacemos caso a nuestros papás y nos premian, o dos, los desobedecemos y nos castigan. Es lo mismo en la vida. En la vida tenemos dos opciones, o seguimos la ley o no la seguimos. Pero todo tiene consecuencias, y son consecuencias buenas y consecuencias malas. Y igual para los padres, le digo lo mismo. La opción de escuchar a sus hijos, de hablar con ellos, de preguntarles, de abrazarlos, de darles un besito, de decirles te amo, es importante. Y a los niños, a ustedes les digo, pues enfóquense en lo positivo, y si sienten que no saben algo, si sienten que no entienden algo, pregunten, hagan preguntas. Las preguntas son buenas. A veces nos dicen no hagas preguntas, pero es lo más importante, porque si no sabes algo y no preguntas, pues nunca lo vas a saber. Pero si preguntas, vas a recibir una respuesta que te va a ayudar a entender.